Vic Farley from the office here in San Jose, and I'm going to, with my colleagues and our panel members, provide you with the latest news on business loans and grants. I know a number of you are just joining us, and I'll give you a moment to settle in and be comfortable with the screen, and then I will take us through the agenda and explain everything to you. So today, I'm delighted that we have our special guests, Ali Lopez and Dennis King from the Small Business Development Center of Silicon Valley, very important providers of free services to small business. Here are the contact information for the San Jose Office of Economic Development, our email and cell number. So please, if you have a need to contact us, please use this information. And we'll be covering everything this afternoon in relation to all the issues that are currently facing businesses in relation to loans, grants, and raising capital. An important disclaimer: every effort is made by the city and our partners to provide correct information, and none of these parties will accept any liability for misinterpretation, incomplete, old, or inaccurate information that's presented in good faith, and always consult with a financial or legal advisor on critical matters for your business. That's our disclaimer, but we make every attempt to provide you with the latest news and top tips on all the key loan and grant issues facing business here in the city. So let me remind everyone that we do have important ways in which you can listen and engage with this webinar if English is not your first language, or you would prefer to listen in either Spanish, Vietnamese, and Mandarin. You can do so by selecting the interpretation icon that you should see on your screen, and you'll see it as a globe shape on, and then you will look at your tool setting and check the language, and then click on that language that you prefer. And I'll just give everyone a moment, if they wish to move to the room where they can listen in Spanish, Vietnamese, or Mandarin, the opportunity to do so. Please note that we will be recording this session. So if you're unable to stay for the 90 minutes or so that we have planned for today, but you would like to listen on another occasion, you can access this recording. It will be posted on our city YouTube channel, where you can find all our other recordings, all our other webinars, and where you can listen and download this webinar at your leisure. Now, important items of note as we go through today's webinar. We do like to respond to any questions that come up. So as you listen to our presentation, please use the Q&A to identify your questions so that I and Ali and Dennis can have a look and think and respond to the specifics of your interest. We will post links and information in the chat as we go through the presentation today, so you don't need to take notes unless you particularly want to, because all the links are in the slides and they are available to you after today's webinar. We like to conduct a survey. We like to know what you think of today's webinar, what you think was good, where you think we need to improve. So please complete that for us and send it back. And last but not least, we'll also provide you with upcoming business support webinars that we have planned for the month of October. Thank you. So today's agenda essentially concentrates on what are the current loan and grant options for you as a business owner here in the city of San Jose. And I'm going to cover for you 4 key areas. We have a deadline today, September 30th, and I'm going to explain the importance of today's deadline in 2 areas: the California Business Relief Grant Fund and the Employee Retention Tax Credit, both very different and need a careful explanation to make sure that you as the business owner can make a last-minute application or can inform your payroll company, or if you do your payroll returns yourself, how to make a claim for the credit. I'll be then going on to explain a new upgraded EIDL loan program. This is funded by the federal government, and the big news is that the loan will be upgraded in terms of its maximum value from $500,000 to $2 million starting from October the 8th, and I'll take you through the detail of that. Also, if you're looking for a lower valued loan at just up to $100,000, I'll be talking you through the detail of the new upgraded California Rebuild Loan Fund, giving you the opportunity to click and direct if you wish to make an application through the link on the slide deck for this loan, where you can look at all the terms, conditions, and eligibility requirements. And then last but not least, I'll give you the heads up on what's around the corner with new loan products and new grants planned for the next 3 months that you may be interested in considering your opportunities to raise capital and secure a more steady cash flow for the business. So those are the 4 main headings that I'll cover with you, and invite Ali and Dennis from SBDC to contribute as we go through this webinar today. Thank you. Let's move on. So September the 30th, today, we have 2 important deadlines. The first of those is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. Now, this is money that an employer who has a payroll can secure a refund on the payroll taxes that you make. And the value of that credit, as it's known, is $7,000 per member of staff for each quarter. And the tax credit ends today. There will be no more tax credit from October 1 onwards. And you apply using the IRS form 941. Now, many companies will use a payroll provider to do that. And those companies where you should, and employ one, you should check with them to see that they offer that service, that they will complete the form 941 for you. Or you need to check that if you're doing it yourself, you're aware of the detail. And the good news is within the regulations that you have up to 3 years to make that application and claim to the IRS for this tax credit. And the tax credit is effectively free money. There is no requirement to repay, other than that you must obviously comply with the rules and regulations of the payroll tax, and the eligibility. So it's important to check the rules now. And if you've used this tax credit in 2020 or earlier in 2021, you'll be familiar with the value of the tax credit. And the important point in terms of planning this is that the federal government only like a business to be able to receive one benefit or loan or grant from the sources from government sources at any one time. And they refer to this expression as double dipping. You cannot have 2 benefits covering the same day. And many businesses have realized that when they claim, for instance, their Paycheck Protection Program, PPP loan, you could not use that loan and claim an employee retention tax credit. So the key issue here is to use the tax credit on different dates. And this is something that your CPA, your tax preparer, will understand. And so to give you an example, if you used your Paycheck Protection Loan Program this year for, say, January the 1st to March the 30th, covering that 3-month period, it's traditionally a minimum of 8 weeks. That would enable you to then claim a tax credit from April the 1st through to June 30th for quarter 2, and then claim another tax credit for quarter 3, which is July the 1st through to September the 30th. But if your tax credit and your PPP loan cover the same dates, then you can't claim the credit. And that's really the important piece of information, is to know what dates you have used your PPP loan, and then make sure that when you claim your employee retention tax credit, it does not cover the same date. And I'm very happy to take questions and go through any examples on that point, if that would help any of the businesses listening in today to explain that. It is technical, And I've tried to keep this as straightforward as possible, but it is worth $7,000 of credit for each member of staff per quarter, up to a total of $21,000 for all 3 quarters in 2021. And it's very important, if you're a business that did not claim a PPP loan, that you may have an opportunity here to claim that amount of money back from the federal government. Now, a completely different prospect here is the California Relief Fund, and that has a closing date of today. Now, if you're a business owner who's already made an application for one of the grants here through the California Relief Fund, that's fine. You're in the system, and I've no doubt that you will get a decision in the next 3 weeks to inform you as to whether you have been successful or not. But if you have not applied for a California Relief Grant, you have got till just 5 p.m. today to make that application. And if you want to apply, you can apply directly at the website, and I'll give you the information so that you can go directly onto that website in a moment. But you have essentially less than 90 minutes to make that application, and you will need to supply 2 important pieces of information with that application, namely your company tax statement for 2019 or 2020 is preferred. You must have a financial statement, a financial tax statement, and you must sign an application form that includes information that proves who you are. And obviously, key piece of proof that you can use here is your driver's license. So you do need some piece of information. If you need to make an application, you must do so in the next 90 minutes. And I'm sorry, it may seem a very short period of time, but I wanted to make sure that every business owner who joined us on this call today was aware of that deadline. And if they needed to, they should leave the webinar now and use the next 90 minutes to make an application. Now, remember, with the California Relief Fund, you can only receive 1 grant. So if you've already been successful and received that grant, and earlier in 2021, you cannot reapply again. So this is only for businesses who've yet to apply or yet to receive a California Relief Fund. I would urge you to look at the website and make your application in the next 90 minutes. It can be done, but you do need to be prepared, and you do need that evidence of who you are with your driver's license, and you do need your most recent tax return. So that's an important piece of news for everyone, and something that I think I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, just in case there may be a business that has not yet applied. And what we do know from the data is that there have been over 6,000 grant awards from this fund alone to businesses here in the city of San Jose. And that in total has brought in nearly $60 million of grant money directly to businesses. And this money does not have to be repaid, provided the business maintains the eligibility and sticks to the rules within the grant program itself. So I think this is an important piece of information for you, just in case you haven't applied, and you should now go and do so in the course of the next 90 minutes. Okay, let's, yes, Dennis, hello.
If you don't mind me saying, Dick, I think your explanations for both programs were excellent, because they're complicated programs. You made them very understandable. So thank you for that. We do want to add a little more to that sense of urgency, not that we're trying to get people to leave our discussion. This is phase 9, and the previous few phases were not open to new applicants. They were basically either special funding programs or an attempt to catch up on those that had applied earlier. Which makes this one so special is that this was the first time in months that it's been opened up to new applicants. Simultaneously, there's no definitive plan for what's next. So as far as we know today, this is it. Now, we hope that there'll be an extension to it, and there's certainly been discussion of that. But what we know is, as of today, this is it. So to follow on Vic's suggestion is that if you had ever considered going for the grant, and you had not done so yet, this is your last chance. So take advantage of it, please.
Thank you, Dennis. That's very helpful. And I know everyone has been trying to encourage a business owner, whether they're in the city of San Jose or more broadly in Silicon Valley, to make sure they get their application in. Thank you. Let's move on. So, a number of business owners have been in contact with the city and many of our partner organizations, such as with Dennis at SBDC, on how to raise working capital. Their business has reopened in the course of the last few months. The business owner is looking to stabilize the cash flow, wants to cover maybe the debts that have been incurred from the past 18 months in relation to rent, or wishes to make decisions in relation to expansion. And one of the key areas that the federal government, through the Small Business Administration, has recently announced new news is with an upgrade of their emergency disaster loan program. And I think the key points I've tried to set out for you here on this slide, that the new upgraded program will start on October the 8th. So this is really a good opportunity for the next 7 days for any business owner to become familiar with the detail, to look at the pre-application process on the SBA website that we've created the link for you on this slide, and to get familiar with, if you want to apply for a loan, how the terms of this loan would compare to any other bank offer that you may have received. Now, let me just highlight for you what I think the key change is. And it's essentially the increase in the loan value, that the SBA will be moving from a $500,000 loan limit to $2 million. And I think that is quite a substantial raise. Now, the SBA have also indicated that the interest rate that's payable will remain fixed at the existing rate of 3.75%. It's actually lower for a non-profit organization. It's 2.75%, but many business owners are in a for-profit legal entity. There's also, I think, which is very helpful in the course of the next 2 years, a payment deferment option so that you can accept a loan, you can draw the loan down, but you don't have to begin repayments for up to 2 years. And it's a deferment, not a rebate. It's not that you don't have to pay any of this money. It's just that you pause for a period of time until you start repaying. So it's a deferment. Now, questions that I have been asked in recent weeks in relation to the EIDL is what types of collateral and security or guarantees may be required? Because this is in essence a loan program where the SBA are looking to make an informed decision about business risk, and they're trying to make a judgment that your business is a going concern and that you do have a level and stable cash flow that allows you to make repayments. And so in this context, if you're seeking a loan under this program that is under $25,000, no collateral is required. And this may be significant if you're a micro business and you're looking to stabilize the trading position of that business, and it's a small amount of money. There is no collateral required. Loans that take you up to $200,000 do not require a personal guarantee. But the moment you get to $200,000 and over, you will have to provide a personal guarantee. Once you go over $500,000, and this is the new feature of the upgraded loan program, the SBA are likely, it's not a requirement, a guarantee. It's not a permanent that applies to everyone, but it is likely to be a requirement that the SBA will take a lien on the assets of the business. Now, that may or may not be something that a business owner would find acceptable or that they would want to agree to, but that is consistent with how a bank would also consider a loan of this value. So there are some fundamental questions here about loan programs and the suitability of a loan for your business. And in truth, not every business should take a loan, because it could be that the circumstances of your business are that the cash flow may be unpredictable, and therefore you don't wish to be in a situation where you would have difficulty with the repayment. On the other hand, it could be that this is the perfect time to consider your working capital moving forward, and this will provide you with a level of stability to plan your business, as I'm sure many business owners have been considering over recent months as they've reopened and looked to regain the kind of earnings and income that they had been used to prior to COVID, and the experience that they've received over the past 18 months. The other thing to note is that this loan program is approved directly by the federal government through the Small Business Administration, not a bank. And a number of people have asked me how they access this application process, and it's always done online directly on the SBA's website. I'll ask Dennis in a moment if there's any points that I've missed, but I think that what we see now with the EIDL loan program is a very competitive offer for businesses looking to secure up to $2 million of working capital. Dennis, is there anything there I should have included but didn't mention, do you think?
Just perhaps the length of the loans.
Yes.
Are certainly significant. So if you want to add that, it would probably be worthwhile.
Yes, and the interesting point with the lengths of the loan is we can go up to, I believe, 30 years.
Yes.
And there's no penalty for early repayment. So in a way, there's a lot of flexibility there for the borrower to consider their position in relation to how they might view that loan in, say, 3 to 5 years' time, and how this loan with a fixed rate may compare to other rates of interest further down the line when businesses consider their refinancing arrangements. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Dennis.
I think that also demonstrates the incredible faith that the federal government has in our small businesses.
Yes.
As most small businesses don't last 30 years. So they're betting on your success.
Yes, and it's very interesting because one of the features of small business here in Silicon Valley is a lot of business owners are coming up to retirement age. I include myself in that kind of conversation, but essentially many business owners are either considering a sale, or they're transferring the ownership within their family, or they're being bought out by the management team of a company. Lots of different options here. And so it's very important from an economic point of view, as well as from the business owner's point of view, that we safeguard our small business community as best we can as they go through these changes in life. Thank you for that, Dennis. So when I listened into an SBA presentation last week on this new EIDL upgrade, this was the information that was presented in relation to how long would it take for the SBA to be able to respond to an application and provide a decision. That it was assumed from the SBA's point of view that when they receive an application, all the information is complete. So this is essentially their current working estimate, that if you're applying for a loan under $500,000, they believe they're in a position to make a loan application determination, a decision, within 3 weeks. If you're going for a loan value above 500,000, it's up to 6 weeks. And if approved, and that's what they think is something they're going to try to work to. But I have heard that obviously there are peaks in the workflow within the SBA, so it wouldn't be surprising if it goes beyond 6 weeks, certainly in the course of October and November, because there's likely to be a high interest from business owners in making an application. One of the other features here, and I'm sure Dennis will have a view on this, is that once you do obtain an EIDL loan and it's been approved, you can go back and seek a higher level of loan at a later date. So it could be that you secure a loan, let's use an example of, say, $200,000 in the course of the next 6 weeks, and then in 6 months' time, you could go back and reapply for a higher loan amount. And that's what a number of businesses have been considering in relation to their strategy towards EIDL, which is to secure one loan approval and then to return at a future date for a second or third loan approval within the program, because the terms and the requirements are highly competitive.
Vic, you might want to point out that the later date, as far as we know, extends to the end of next year.
Yes, thank you very much, Dennis. Yes. So we're assuming that the federal government will have sufficient funds, as I think they're indicating within the program, and they will run to the end of 2022. But I know from many of the other conversations that I had that they are expecting a lot of interest in this loan program over the course of the next 3 months as we get to the end of 2021. And so we need to keep we need to be aware of the news that comes from Washington in relation to the take up and the overall number and value of the loans that are being approved across the United States. Now, we know from data that close to 3,000 businesses already in the city of San Jose have received an EIDL loan. So we know that from information that's been published by the Small Business Administration. And if you are one of those successful business owners that's already received a loan, you can go back and apply again for a higher loan limit. So this is an opportunity to further strengthen your working capital if you need to do so. And Dennis and the SBDC have been very, very important to the city in relation to being able to provide that one-to-one advice to the business owner to recognize whether applying for a loan is the right decision or not, and in applying, what level of information you do need to have prepared and how to make that application online. And so it's a very important relationship with the SBDC to ensure that you as the business owner get the right advice at the right time, because inevitably, if you're unable to supply all the information to the SBA, it takes longer for the SBA to make a decision whether to approve or reject. And that can be very frustrating for you as the business owner if things become delayed. Right. Now, one of the other features of applying for an EIDL loan is you also get the opportunity to receive a grant, a business grant, and this is known as an advance grant. Now, there are eligibility criteria and rules, so not every business owner is likely to receive an advance grant, but this is something I think, just to explain more carefully, that you cannot apply for an advance grant if you haven't already first applied for an EIDL loan. So you have to apply for the loan first. You do not have to take the loan, even if it's approved, but in making that application for the loan, it automatically triggers within the SBA an email to you, depending on the eligibility criteria, that you may or may not be in a position to be offered a non-repayable business grant, and this is known as the advance grant. And so the important but perhaps obvious point is, if you make your EIDL loan application, always check your email to see that if you receive one of these opportunities to apply for a grant, that you do so. And the key criteria is whether your business, not where you live, but where your business is located, if it is in what is deemed to be a low income area. Now, how do we know what is a low income area? Well, the SBA have a map. And if you go onto their website, and we've detailed all the information on this slide, you click on the link here. This will take you to the particular section on the SBA website that would also provide you information on whether your business is located in a zip code that falls within a low income area. And there are a number of zip codes within the city of San Jose that do fall within a low income area. So it is important to check. And it could very well be that there is an SBA advance grant that may be worth up to $15,000 of non-repayable money that is available to you as a consequence of applying for the EIDL loan. And again, I'm very happy, and I'm sure Dennis will too, to take questions on this point. But it struck, I think, me in talking to many business owners over the past 18 months that you must look for the opportunities that exist and where you can make an application for this type of money, because it is a non-repayable business grant. Now, this is very different. This is something called the California Rebuild Loan Fund. And the California Rebuild Loan Fund is not federal, it's state. This was introduced last year by the governor, Gavin Newsom, through his economic development team in Sacramento, and they created a new loan fund. And this loan fund is more geared for the smaller business. Typically, in this case, businesses who employ 50 people or less, but in truth, it's probably going to be for businesses employing less than 10, who have gross revenues of less than $5 million or below in 2019. So they're very broad eligibility criteria. A lot of small businesses will have less than 50 staff and probably gross revenues of below $5 million. And you can apply for a loan of up to $100,000. It will need to be, if approved, it would need to be paid back over a 3 or 5 year term. So it's quite short term compared to the previous loan program that Dennis and I were talking about, EIDL. But it does have the advantage of a fixed interest rate at 4.25%, which is very competitive in today's traditional banking market. So this is a different option for small business. If you're looking for something that has a shorter repayment period, not long-term debt, you want a fixed interest rate, and your capital needs are under $100,000, this looks like a very competitive option for you to consider. Now, an application process, again, is done online, and we've provided for you on the slide where you would click here, and it would take you directly to the website where you can look at all the information that would inform you as to whether to apply. There are two things on the website when I was looking at it this morning that I wanted to highlight. One is that all the application materials are in a variety of different languages, not just Hispanic, Vietnamese or Chinese, but a variety of different languages, Arabic, French, Italian. You can find probably close to 15 languages there where all the material has been translated. So it's a very helpful way for you to take your time to look at this information and to see whether this is right for you. Now, the other aspect to this is also there is a recommendation within the application that will enable you to be directed towards organizations such as Dennis and the Small Business Development Center. So the loan fund are very keen to support the business owner to take the right advice. And so when you click on this website, you will see information that will enable you, if your business is, and it should be located here in Santa Clara County, to then be able to take the option to go directly to Dennis and his organization if you wish to sign up for free technical support. And that's a very important feature of this because it allows the business owner to feel that they can get support directly in making that application. Dennis, were there any points you'd like to cover on this one? Because I know you've been very active in this area.
Thank you, Vic. Actually, it's a kind of a side commentary in that most of these very special grant and loan programs depends on how much funding is still available.
Yes.
There are limits to that, and that encourages people to act sooner rather than later. This particular program has an unusual feature for those of us in San Jose and Santa Clara County, that last year, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors allocated $6 million to invest in this fund, subject that those businesses be based in the county of Santa Clara. And obviously that includes the city of San Jose. They have already pledged that money to that program. They've also made a pledge that not yet implemented, but they've pledged another $19 million should this loan fund be used in that purpose. And so they and we are watching how much this fund is being used. It's just that we in this county have got the added advantage of having additional resources more than the overall statewide program. So it's another incentive
yes.
to say, take advantage of it while you can.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely, Dennis, that was fantastic because it's such a competitive offer, isn't it? That interest rate and that repayment term is very similar to what other banks may offer, but this could have real advantages for you, particularly with that fund, as you say, for Santa Clara County. I do know from the information, again, I received late last week, that there over $3 million has already been allocated to businesses in the city of San Jose, with an average loan value of $63,000. So it's very interesting how in fact business are beginning to realize that this is a competitive and attractive offer. And again, I've got a complete list, as it's public information, of all the loans that have been awarded through the federal sources, but not through the county sources. So I only have the totals to work on here. Now, what's on the horizon? Sorry, Dennis.
No,
Apologies.
that's fine. That's good.
So what's on the horizon? Now, as Dennis was saying, we've got the California Rebuild Fund that we've just referred to, but also SBDC and Dennis have been very close because they have been managing another proposal, which has been of great interest and value to small business here in Santa Clara County, which is a grant program based on the COVID-19 protective measures. And the first round was completed, I believe, Dennis, in early September. And now you're in that busy period of making decisions on those applications. But there may be some anticipation that in forthcoming months that you will see a top up of funds from the county, in which case I thought it was important we draw that to the attention of business owners today, because they can click on for more information and sign up for news. We don't have any dates yet, and we don't know the intentions yet with funds, because I do know the county has to manage that budget very carefully. But it's a good way for a business owner just to make that known to them by signing up for more information. So as and when it becomes available, the business owner gets an immediate notice through an email. Now, we do know from Gavin Newsom's recent decisions on the California budget, there's going to be a small new micro business grant program, the details of which have not yet been published. Now, this was originally a proposal some time ago. I can't remember the date precisely, I apologize, in late 2020, when at a statewide level, there was a great deal of interest in working with food trucks and very small one-person, two-person micro businesses. And this discussion was taken forward and budget was agreed at a statewide level for a new micro business grant program for the very, very small businesses. And although we don't have detail, we do believe it's likely to be launched in late 2021, and that take-up will be considerable across the state. Now, what we know here in the city of San Jose is that where we've promoted grant offers, businesses do apply. And so I want to give you the first opportunity here that as a business owner, you can click on the Here link, and that will take you again to the website where you can sign up for more information through the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And that's where they will be publishing information once they have more details. And last but not least, the City of San Jose, the Office of Economic Development, has been awarded budget to design a new business grant program, and we anticipate launching that in early 2022. We have a number of legal questions that we have to consider and a number of procurement questions that we have to consider, but our anticipation is that in early 22 that we should be attempting and aiming to launch a new business grant program. So please follow the news on the Office of Economic Development and our COVID-19 page, and we will be working with Dennis and many of the other technical assistance providers that support small business to promote this and to get the news out once we have it. So these are the three things that I would encourage business owners to just keep an eye on in terms of what's on the horizon, what's being planned at a statewide level, at a county level, and at a city level as we try and help businesses come through the uncertainty of the past 18 months and ensure that they have the maximum opportunities to apply for grants and loans.
Vic, if I may add one small comment to your observations, because you're right on target, that most of these special programs are only open for a finite period of time.
Yes.
Many of the grant programs normally have an application window of anywhere from a week to maybe up to 3 weeks. So it
Yes.
really behooves people to pay attention in terms of those opportunities, because once they're closed, then those opportunities are essentially lost.
Yes, and certainly from a city point of view, we do try our very best to get that information out to people as soon as possible. But you're absolutely right, Dennis. You do have to keep an eye on those dates. They are super important, aren't they? Because it can be seen as something of a rush at the end, and it's the old, if you like, the old cliche that you do need to prepare. It's very important to know what's happening at the earliest opportunity, and you can prepare accordingly. And a lot of the online applications, although it's improved in recent months, systems do crash. And so you have to give yourself time. And we've discovered that many of the online applications, it's better to do it in the evening when the traffic is lower on these applications portfolio portals than during the traditional office hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So there are different ways in which you have to think about giving yourself the maximum amount of time, as Dennis was saying, to get your application in, and to notice at all times the end dates that the organizations are working to. Okay. So what are the top tips? This is my way of just trying to summarize where we are today and what businesses should be thinking about. Apply now. I've just looked at the clock. There's 47 minutes. So if you haven't applied for a California relief grant, you've got 47 minutes to do so. Please do so. Check your eligibility with a payroll provider or your CPA or yourself if you're the person who completes the payroll forms to IRS directly to apply for your employee retention tax credit. The federal government ends this credit. This is the last day, September the 30th. From October the 1st, it is no more, but you do have up to 3 years to make that claim. So it's a very important opportunity to get free money. Apply to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, if you want either a loan and a grant. Check the eligibility criteria, as we were saying, but from October the 8th onwards, it's going to be very busy in the SBA, I have no doubt. If you're looking for a lower valued, under $100,000 loan, check out the California Rebuild Loan Fund. It's a very secure way to make an application with a good service and a good referral to organizations such as Dennis at the SBDC. And last but not least, please sign up for the news so you know the dates, as Dennis was mentioning, and you know what's coming up. That's my summary for business owners today here in San Jose. Let's move on. So I'm sorry, we've probably been speaking now for close to 45 minutes. We've tried to be thorough in what we're providing you, the business owner, with information, but now's an opportunity for Q&A, and let's look and see what questions we have. I'm going to just pause for a moment while I just look at the screen and look at the questions that we have, and we'll get to everything that people have been asking. So let me just, I'll be working from the top down. Let me see. Is it possible to get a copy of this recorded meeting? Yes, it will be possible, and we will be letting every organization or business owner who registered by email when that becomes available. We try and do that within 2 days, but in truth, it can run longer, and it will be available in multiple languages as well. And that's what my colleague Elizabeth was just referring to there. So what is the URL to apply for the California Relief Fund? Okay, I'll check that in a minute. Oh, it's there below. Thank you very much. I should be looking ahead. Thank you, Ali. So make sure to read through the instructions, as there are several key areas, and if you do not do that correctly, there'll be delay in processing. And obviously it's the attachments in many cases with an application. So your attachment, a PDF format for your driver's license, scan it, have that electronically available. Scan your business, your tax return for 2020, have that as a document that can be uploaded. And the other thing I learned working with a business owner who applied is use the incognito or private mode, because it makes the application process more efficient. I hadn't realized that. I don't know, Dennis, if you been made aware of that technique with the application process. But apparently,
Yeah.
the online portal worked more efficiently if you use the private mode.
Interesting.
These are the quirks you learn at the end that you wanted to know at the beginning, I think is the truth.
And also, if you're having difficulty, to clear out your cache and go back.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Okay, so look at this question from Asha, which Ali, thank you for replying to. Can you, if you had a loan in 2020, presumably that was an EIDL loan, can you apply for an increase? The answer is yes, and you do have to use the SBA portal. And you can also apply for the advanced grant and the supplemental grant, the $15,000. So I do at the moment, I'm on a bit of a mission to encourage every business owner to consider the EIDL, because that may also give the opportunity of the grant as well. Thank you, Ali, for putting the link in. That's fantastic. If you received a PPP, can you apply for a grant? You can apply for an EIDL, okay? And that would give you then an opportunity for a grant. You can also apply for the California Relief Grant if you also had PPP. That doesn't prevent you. That doesn't mean that you're ineligible or you won't be considered. You will be considered if you get your California Relief Grant application in the next 43 minutes. Okay.
But also beware of double dipping possibilities.
Correct. So you have to, it's all about date management, isn't it? Knowing which dates that you actually ultimately seek your loan forgiveness for on the PPP, and you make sure those dates don't conflict with any other federal assistance that you've received, like the employee retention tax credit that we've been talking about earlier. Yes, very important point. Thank you, Dennis. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Juan. Yeah, okay, yeah, 47 minutes left. But we have been trying to tell people for the last 3 weeks to apply since that round 9 was open. Can we use EIDL to upgrade? Yes, you can. The EIDL, what the SBA look at in terms of a judgment on your application are really quite traditional things from a bank lender's, from a lender's perspective. One is your credit rating. They will look at that credit rating and your credit history. And so if you have a low credit rating or a low credit history, you'll have to explain that carefully. And it will be considered as part of their decision making. The other aspect to it is your cash flow. They will be looking at your ability as a business owner to make a repayment on a set loan amount. And this will be, again, typically with any bank would consider that as a fundamental requirement of considering whether to accept or reject a loan application. Can the applicant repay and repay consistently without default? And that's probably a very important consideration in relation to your financial records and your tax records, that you're able to present the most accurate, up-to-date set of statements. And if you're required to provide a spreadsheet with the forecast, that forecast is consistent with the records that you present. I'll ask Dennis in a moment whether he's got an example of how the kind of financial records and the importance those records play in the application process. But certainly from when I speak to the SBA and the people in their call center and their client management center that receive the applications, they do look at those two critical areas in terms of credit record, credit history, and cash flow management as important determinants as to whether an application would be accepted or rejected. Or increasingly, the SBA will come back to the applicant and say, we need more information or clarification on some of these financial questions. Dennis, I wonder if you might have a thought there on the issue of how the SBA make that determinant.
Well, you're exactly right, not only in terms of the federal and the state programs, but often in our local programs as well. So one of the heartbreaks that we had to deal with last year with the San Jose Small Business Rent Relief Program was that we had to be able, the applicants had to document the fact that they were actually harmed by COVID. And that usually meant a comparison of their financial statements from one time period to another, or their bank statements. And if they didn't have that, then we couldn't document that there was economic harm, and
Mhm.
therefore they were not eligible to receive those grants. So a lot, especially of our micro enterprises that are based on cash transactions, they lose out doubly because they won't be able to get access to the grants and loans that's available. So record keeping is vitally important.
Mm.
Just you've got to be able to track things.
Yes.
Most financial institutions, including SBA, looks at cash flow. And if you don't have a way of documenting your previous cash flow, that usually is an indication in terms of your ability to pay things back. Um, and if you don't have that documentation and they can't determine it, that's usually held against the applicant. So more than ever, the records are vitally important.
And I certainly know from the past 18 months, Dennis, as you and I have worked with businesses or spoken to business owners, we've always said, even if it's not you, have someone in the business, if you're employing people who you know maintain good records on the finances of the business, if it's your CPA or tax preparer, make sure these things are complete because you will need them at some point. Yes.
Yes.
And I certainly think that one of the issues coming forward over the next few months, because a lot of businesses, again, who've reopened are now looking to expand. They are now looking to make an acquisition in terms of equipment, or they're looking to expand into a different location. For some businesses in certain sectors, this is a very interesting time, and they're looking to raise capital to make that expansion or to make that capital purchase. And so again, banks will look at the capacity to repay in their credit history, as Dennis was saying. And so there are other loan programs, particularly within the SBA, like they refer to them as the 7A and the 504 programs, that are very important in terms of expansion. And from my discussion with the SBA as part of a wider group of people some 2 weeks ago, they were seeing in the SBA an increased demand for those programs in California. And that gives you an indication that business, particularly here in San Jose, which is essentially open, the city has no real restrictions, and the county has removed the final shelter in place restrictions. So businesses that are able to be open can reopen. There are certain conditions in terms of numbers of people and certain types of business like live events, etc. But essentially for most businesses, they can trade, and therefore the issue of capital raising has become a very important one in relation to expansion. And we're beginning to see that with things like property. A lot of commercial property is being bought and sold at the moment, and a lot of capital equipment purchases are being made. And therefore, one of the key factors here is, of course, that the SBA's 7A and 504 program have highly competitive interest rates and very good repayment terms as well. And you can look at that online as well through the SBA's website. Now, I don't know, Dennis, if you've recently been looking at 7A and 504 loan
Yes.
applications, but certainly it's returned as a topic of conversation.
And it is for us as well. So as you know, in our area, the vast bulk of restaurants are in leased properties. But
Yeah.
what they've discovered is that if they are concerned about a jump up in rent, which is most likely going to take place as COVID disappears, there's
Yes.
going to be a rush to fill in those spaces, that the best insurance against increased rents is to own your own building. And so, and usually the most traditional way to do that is through the SBA 504 and 7A loans. And so, and usually a good recommendation is that you can go to your own bank to do that, but to use services like SBA or our SBDC programs, you're able to compare opportunities and compare the various financial opportunities that you have in terms of looking at a 504 and a 7A. So while they're similar, they also have some things that make one might be more desirable than others.
Yes.
And probably the best bet is that you don't have to do that on your own. I mean, that's why using services like ours, it could at least give you some guidance for you to decide what's the best bet for you.
Yeah, and we certainly from a city point of view have encouraged all business owners to seek advice, whether it's advice that's free through you, Dennis, or whether you use a CPA, because you want the best information possible when you get to make that decision, as we were just saying about your financial records. It's very, very important. And it's also important in terms of understanding the terms of a loan, that you're comfortable, that you don't feel pressured as a business owner, that you've made the right decision, you've taken advice, and you've reflected on the implications of expansion and the nature of risk and what you consider to be the opportunity and the return that comes from that investment. And I think the point really in terms, particularly for businesses, as you were saying, I have always thought that it's important for a business owner to consider the opportunity to acquire the property that they're located in. Because in effect, it's like creating two businesses. You're both the landlord and the tenant. And the tenant derives hopefully a profit for you, as should the landlord. So in effect, it gives you two options and opportunities. And the other point of owning your property in the world of Silicon Valley is it enables you to have complete control over the future of your business, because you own the land that the business is located in. So you get to decide what it is and when it is time for you to either stay or to move, or to enable your family to inherit, or whatever your strategy is at the point where you want to make decisions in the long term about your future. You have control in a way that as a tenant, you don't always have control. So I think Dennis and I share a similar mission here to encourage business owners to always look at that opportunity should it arise. Okay, so let's have a couple more questions here have come in. Is it correct that a new grant program will be offered after October 8th? October the 8th is the start deadline for EIDL. So it's a loan program that's being revised. There will be other grant programs, as Dennis was mentioning. At some future point, there'll be a grant program that comes via the county through to Dennis's organization in relation to COVID-19 protection measures, but as yet we don't have that information. And there will be a city grant program in early 22, which we are currently designing, but that has to go through a number of approvals before we can go public, and we don't yet have the detail for that. So I think realistically on grants, you're looking at early 22. The only other grant program is via EIDL, and that's the one thing you would need to do, is apply for an EIDL loan that would then make you eligible for one of the advanced grants. Next question. I'm a young Hispanic woman and I'm planning to start a boba tea business. Is it possible to apply for an EIDL loan to help start up the business? Are there other grants and loans that would be helpful to help start and maintain this business? That's a good question. My thinking there, Dennis and Ali, is that it's not really for a startup business, EIDL. It's really an established business that has a set of trading accounts that predates COVID. So effectively more than 18 months old, with a level of income and can be referred through your tax records and other financial records as an established business. Would that be your view, Ali and Dennis?
That's correct. It's for injury, the emergency injury disaster loan.
Yep.
So you would have to had your business already. Now this might be a Kiva candidate. Don't you agree, Dennis?
Yep.
Yeah, you're taking the thunder from me. So that's yes. What I was going to suggest to her is reach out to us and let's talk, because there are other funding vehicles that's out there, but it really does depend on your circumstances. So traditional banks usually don't like startups, but even on those loan funds, they do expect you to have what they call skin in the game. So they'd like to see that whatever loan that you might be looking for, that you've got a certain percentage that you're going to be able to cover yourself. But there are other variables. And so it sort of depends on your collateral, your experience, and who may be teaming up with you. So rather than give a blanket answer, I would invite you to give us a call and talk to one of our advisors at no cost, and again, explore your options.
Thank you, Dennis. I mean, the only other thought came into my mind is the SBA's microloan program. I do see that a number of organizations, the CDFIs as they're known here in the Bay Area, have restarted and re-promoted those microloans as well. So there are options, and I think coming to see you, Dennis, would be an excellent way to consider what those options mean for
The one that Ali was referring to, Vic, was our Kiva. We are a
Yes.
Kiva hub.
Yes.
Kiva is grant funded, which means it doesn't have the same requirements as the bank.
Mm.
Instead of going to one source for a loan, you're actually going to dozens, if not hundreds of people, all making small loans. And the big message on that side is, what's your story? What are you going to do with the funding? How is this going to be helpful to you, your family, your business? What's your story? So in that sense, don't give up. You do have options. It is admittedly more difficult in a startup environment, but again, don't give up.
Certainly startups is a question that I think the city will be returning to in early 22 when we've worked through a lot of the questions that existing business owners are under pressure on, because we do want to promote startups. And we have a strong tradition in the city of San Jose of self-employment, and many people who are self-employed today become business owners tomorrow. So it's a great way to ensure that entrepreneurialism in the city is strong and vibrant by promoting the opportunity to start up your business. I've left on the slide deck here today's panelists, Ali and Dennis, both from the Silicon Valley Small Business Development Center. Their contact details and information that have appeared on earlier webinar presentations and email address. So it's there for you in the event you need to make contact, as Dennis and Ali have both recommended, with some of the questions that we've been asked. Let me just see. Yes, there will be recordings, just to pick up on recent questions here. Yes, there will be a recording made. The Rebuild Fund link that will take you directly to the site is there now in the chat room. You can use that. Thank you, Ali, for providing that. So I think we've reached the end of today's webinar. Dennis and Ali, can I thank you very much indeed on behalf of the City of San Jose for joining us today and being able to impart your advice and knowledge to our business owners who've attended. Thank you to my colleagues who've been with us and our interpreters. I hope every business owner who's been able to join with us today have found this of value. All of the information we provided will be made available through the slide deck and a recording over the course of the next few days. If you're going to make an application to the California Relief Fund, you have 23 minutes to make the application.
And counting.
And counting. And I kind of, on behalf of everyone, want to wish every business owner every success in the applications they make, whether for grants or loans. Your success is the city's success. And I know from everything that Dennis does that we have a shared passion for supporting small business across the city and elsewhere in Silicon Valley. So on behalf of everyone who's participated today, thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time when we'll be hosting our next regular webinar. We'll be looking at issues of permitting and support and assistance that the city can provide in 2 weeks' time, which is October the 13th. And there we'll be having a panel of experts and specialists from within the city to assist you on that topic. And on that note, goodbye and good afternoon from everyone here at the City of San Jose. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.